Well, hello, I'm Rick,
And I'm Eric.
and we are your Transparent Wealth Management hosts.
Welcome to our show.
Hey, another happy Friday to you, my friend.
Another happy Friday to you, sir.
And it's a long time coming. I know, actually, our listeners heard an encore presentation, which I think was a good one.
Mm-hmm.
And yes,
Last week.
we love to do these live, but of course we were traveling and actually at conference in beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada.
The warm state.
It was warm there. And, some people go for the gambling and the casinos. Some people go for the shows and the sites. I'm in the latter group.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I watched my wife, Kim, plug in, $20 and watch it disappear. And I said, play the lower odds and just make it last. We'll get free beer.
That's right.
Because they were $10 at the bar.
Or just
I mean, she played back and won enough to where we almost got free beer.
Mm-hmm. But we also got to see one of the greatest engineered invention, or whatever you want to call it.
Undoubtedly. Marvels of our time. And if you have not seen and toured the Hoover Dam, put that on your list. You must do before you die.
Yeah.
Absolutely, totally love that. What a miracle in engineering.
It's interesting how advanced, quote unquote, they were, back in the 30s, started in 1930.
Well, we talked about that, and think about the pyramids that were built thousands of years before that, and the engineering marvel that was. But it was on that scale. It was that kind of, I didn't have any idea, they were looking, they said it would take, 125 years or something for that concrete to cool.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they couldn't wait that long because they did it in 5 years, came in 2 years ahead of schedule because they were actually using refrigeration pipes of some kind and running cooled water through there to cool it down and accelerate the cooling process. And I mean, it was just, they did a matrix, in terms of blocking and how they poured that concrete and everything. It was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But, again, that was pretty cool. I saw the, the Neon Sign Museum. Yep. They call it the Boneyard. It was downtown. I love history, so looking at all those old Las Vegas signs was cool. And a company that made those now eludes me, but we saw it during the day. Hoover Dam, I think we saw in the afternoon.
Yep.
And then we went down to lovely
Fremont
Street. And boy, that was cool.
It was an interesting experience.
That's old Las Vegas. That's the old Las Vegas Strip. Binion's is down there. And again, of course, having done that history, I knew that Binion's was one of the first places to cover the front of a square building with lights. The entire front of it was covered in lights. It made it this cascading, attractive, vibrant kind of thing. Well, now they've added an LED canopy that covers that thing, or at least 3 blocks of it.
3 blocks.
What would you say that thing was? 400 yards that we zip-lined that?
I would say at least 400.
Yeah, and we zip-lined. We were over top of the people on
Fremont Street.
On Fremont, and below the LED light canopy. And it was a good time.
It was.
And we liked it so much we came back the next day and did it for a couple more hours.
You did, I didn't.
How about, that's right, you clicked off after that because you'd been in the casino the night before till a 3-hour time difference catches up.
It'll catch up to you at some point.
What was that place called? The Heart Attack Cafe?
The Heart Attack Grill.
Heart Attack Grill. So we're sitting down there drinking cold adult beverages of our choice, watching people get onto a scale because it said if you weigh more than 350 pounds, you eat free. And in 2 days, I saw 2 people qualify. And I don't know that they were ecstatic, happy people that they qualified.
Did they walk in and get a 5-pound burger?
I guess they did. But I mean, it was just a hoot to watch the thing, and watch these people jump on in groups and, and then we started guessing, okay, well, that person's big enough. No, that person's not. We were guessing their weight before they got on, and it became quite the entertainment value.
That's right.
So it was a good time.
Well, now we're back in Cincinnati.
What's good to be back. And, of course, Eric, we get asked on a regular basis, it seems like, what is a holistic model look like? And, it's kind of the end-to-end process. There's 4 pillars in the world of financial planning, let's say. There's investing, there's taxes, there's insurance, and there's estate planning. When I think about the investment model, it just makes sense to me to be solution-based, offer fee-based or commission, just whatever, solves the problem.
Taxes, you can do both tax planning or preparation. The preparation is mandatory. You got to file your taxes each year. The planning is optional. So we've partnered with a few CPAs that will go back, 2 years to see, how you filed, see if you made any mistakes. And if you did, maybe they are amendable and maybe file a corrected return. Or if you haven't, or if they can't make that mistake, you make sure you don't step on that same landmine going forward.
That's planning. So you got a 3-year look back. I look at, the world of risk management, and it's, what kind of coverage have you really got, and what are you paying for it? Are you paying a fair, reasonable price? We have partners that do that. And I look at the areas, particularly we're going to, so I think some of what I wrote in The View this week was on that very topic of the anticipated cost of healthcare. Baby boomers, if you're not paying attention to that, you're asleep. Need to be looking at the new long-term care alternatives and some of these other things. We have partners that do that because we can do a great job managing wealth. But if you hit some big, giant healthcare pothole, boy, that could sure wipe you out.
Yep. And the last pillar is estate planning. So we work with both elder law and estate planning attorneys. You've lived your life, you've grown your assets, you've accumulated the wealth. Now it's time to make sure your wealth and your assets get passed on to your loved ones, not courts, hospitals, and attorneys. So doing the proper estate planning today can make sure that you're going to pass those assets in the most efficient way possible.
Absolutely. Feels like a train wreck in slow motion otherwise.
Yep.
Shame to see you, use that, enjoy it, but pass it on to your loved ones, not the ones that love your money.
There you go.
Now, of course, today, as always, Eric, this is an educational program. We're not giving advice. You should certainly seek advice, from competent, investment advisors, tax or legal advice, real estate people, whatever. Sometimes certain statements we make during the program appear to be forward-looking. Nobody has a crystal ball. The opinions we express are certainly ours. They're not our broker-dealer MPC. We are both registered under a broker-dealer as well as under a registered investment advisory. We hold all kinds of licenses and everything, but that just covers us.
Yep. Couple ways you can contact us, though, during our show, because we will take live questions on the very last segment, and you can send us emails. So if you want to call in and ask us a question, give us a call at 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790, or you can shoot us an email, info@straighttalkcleardecisions.com. That's info@straighttalkcleardecisions.com.
And that's if you're shy.
That's right. If you don't
Great
want
to hear your voice on the air, but think those questions out and send them to us. They'll pop up right here. You could tweet us. We're on social media, so Facebook, like us on LinkedIn. Twitter, we are at Ricktirement, RIKTIREEMENT, easy for me to spell, at Ricktirement. So, the topic today, Eric, is one that, I've just been celebrating. If you're one of our LinkedIn friends, you've seen this, and I think on Facebook as well, that I'm now entering my 32nd year.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first part of May. I can't believe that I'm 32 years doing this and still having fun. Our radio technician here, Fish, he turned 30 the other day. So, man, I've been doing this longer than you've been here. So, that's just one of those odd kind of things that you don't really think about, but every once in a while it pops up and you go, oh, wow.
Yeah.
So thank you for all those congratulations and well wishes. And I can tell you I'm just getting started. I'm loving this and love what we do and love who we do it for.
That's right.
So, one of these questions that continue to come up, and it happens to be the title of our show today, is how to tell if your financial advisor is really working for you, really working in your best interest. That principle could be applied to a lot of different professions. I've always wondered that. My parents, and probably mostly on my mom's side, raised me as a skeptic. So, I think when I was a kid, I was a skeptic. I remember having thoughts about, going to church and wondering, hey, what I'm hearing here isn't lining up with what they're saying. And I think I was 8 years old. So I think they grilled me in the world of skepticism. You just don't want it to turn into cynicism, right? So there's a healthy balance there. Skepticism means have the courage to ask the questions. Now, one of the things that we're really devout and focused on, big on education, because we want folks to be able to ask intelligent questions, to be able to recognize what it is that they're really looking at.
Yep. It's one simple word, it's transparency. What are you getting? What's the value? And why did you buy it? Why are you investing in it? What is it really doing for you is the question, with transparency and asking those right questions.
Yeah. So, when I think about the first thing that kind of comes to mind, with all the different things that you can be doing, one of the things that jumps out to me right away is, is your financial advisor, the firm you're working with, do they offer everything?
What do you mean? What do you mean by everything?
Well, are they fee-based and commission-based? I really think of it in simple terms. If somebody is only fee-based, that's really another name for, bias. Mm-hmm. There's a bias there because what are they going to try to sell you? Fee-based planning. So really, that's a different form of commission.
That's right. And we're not.
That's how they eat.
That's exactly what it is. And we're not saying one is any better or any worse than the other. We're just trying to point out the conflicts of interest that can arise.
I think that's the key phrase right there. Where's their conflict of interest? Mm-hmm. Because the other side of that is the commission-only people who they eat what they kill. And they tend to be, if they're really good salesmen, they're doing a lot of killing.
Hopefully.
And you hope that it's going to work in your best interest. But we're going to drill down on some of these topics, like, with the new Department of Labor ruling and the fiduciary ruling. We're going to talk about that a little bit and not get muddled down in it, but I think understand, some of the good points in it and then certainly the limitations. Mm-hmm. So both sides of that. We're basically going to talk about the difference between what I call peddlers versus planners. Now in my 32nd year, I've seen a lot of that.
Mm-hmm. And I think one of the big things we'll hit on is the difference between suitability and what's in your best interest. That's a big piece that's really the Department of Labor is focusing on, but that's what we've been focusing on because just because it's suitable doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be right for you and your situation.
Sure, so we'll talk about those rules. I'm reminded of that movie. If you didn't see that movie, Wall Street, with Michael Douglas, and then there was a second follow-up. I think the first one had, Charlie Sheen, and I can't remember who was in the second one, somebody different, who was the little protege. But
Gordon Gekko?
That's him. That's him, Gekko. So he, his statement that, greed is good, I would disagree with that. Greed to me is avarice. It's an extreme. It's you go through the buffet of life, and instead of just putting what's on your plate, you're piling it on. I mean, you're taking more than you could ever possibly eat in 3 lifetimes. That's greed. Self-interest is I take a plate, and I want to eat, and I get what I think I can eat. That's self-interest. Mm-hmm. It's survival.
And everybody has it.
Yeah. So, I mean, when we, number one, realize let's look at anything that we're engaging in, I would first and foremost be looking at that component and saying, well, first of all, everybody has self-interest. And if somebody says to me, oh, no, I'm not focused on that, I'm just focused on other people. Number one, there's one of two things. Either they're unaware or that's dishonest, and neither one of those work for me.
Nope.
So I tend to disengage people that try to pretend like, they're completely, benevolent. I think only God himself truly gave out a benevolence, expecting nothing back. Mm-hmm. Short of being God, which we're not, and I haven't met on a personal basis yet, I tend to think, humans are humans.
Yep.
So there's going to be that balance you have self-interest, I have self-interest. How do we bring this together? So, I mean, some of the common sense things, certainly in the world of investment, is, what does somebody have to offer me? What's their focus? Like I just had this story, and I hear this quite a bit. Somebody came to us and graciously complimented us, went to our website, researched us. We love that when people check all that out. We put a lot of time and energy into that, so it is special and it gives you a lot of resources and educational. You just go on there and request those white papers on any topic. If you missed a show, you can pick it up, on Voice America, on iTunes and podcast. They do those, and then we have a whole bunch of shows. Our technician Fish is archived onto our website, Straight Talk, cleardecisions.com. But, one of the things that that we continue to be focused on is people who have more knowledge, tend to make better, more informed decisions. Now, the question is, what kind of information you're getting? Well, just like this meeting that occurred recently, where the person said to me, hey, I got referred to somebody, I go in, I talk to this person, and they're saying, I'm trying to give them this whole picture. And this individual, which is not uncommon, with a peddler, jumped to trying to sell him a disability policy. Now, he said, I'm talking about, one thing, and this is what he's focused on. And he said, even when it finally said, I just kind of went along and waited to see what the proposal was. And the plan he was proposing didn't even fulfill the need of what the guy proposed to him. He said, okay, here's your shortfall, but let's just get you something. Let's just get you in and get you started. That type of attitude should be one of the number one red flags, that somebody's just trying to sell you something.
Because what's the biggest thing they're not doing? They're not listening. It's not about, somebody selling you something or putting you into a stock or a bond or a mutual fund. It's them listening to you to understand, what are you really here for? What are you trying to accomplish? Whether that's saving for retirement, whether that's for a specific purpose, they got to be able to listen, because that's the only way you're really going to get a true recommendation that's really going to fit your situation.
So let me put that in simple terms. This person was being presented with a product, not a process. So be thinking process. A process would look more like this. Somebody comes in. We start, for example, in competent planners. Any competent planner, not just us, is going to look at this and go, okay, let's figure out where the problem is. Let's find out what's broken. And they're going to ask a lot of questions. They're going to find out life history and a lot of different things and let you talk. And that's our time to listen and hear, because I'm going to tell you what, retirement, financial independence may be spelled the same way. I've never seen two people in 32 years that look exactly the same way. Mm-mm. It's like snowflakes and fingerprints. They're unique. They're they're unique in their feel, their goals, everything, and how you're going to get there. Well, in a process, you're going to begin with the end in mind. You should be looking at the end down there saying, okay, what's that look like up here, and where am I at right now? And here, what steps am I, A, going to take to get there? And B, take a look at what I got and tell me what may not be working toward that goal. Mm-hmm. Now, that's a process. Now, there may be some of the same solutions that come in that process, but that's why we always love starting with a financial plan. I don't know of any better scientific way to measure metrics than to look at something that's an integrated dynamic. I'm not talking about these cheap things you do online. They have part of the picture, but I've never seen one that has all the picture. Mm-mm. You need one that's pulling feeds off of once it knows what your holdings are, that it's updating every day. And it's integrated into other programs. I know we probably use, 3 or 4 different programs that integrate there. Between assessing risk to looking at, hidden levers, stress test portfolios against certain scenarios, headline kind of things. That's what an integrated program looks like, and then it's integrated into our financial planning program too.
Yep.
So it's got all those types of things, and we pay big bucks for that, but, that's why we do that. We can do that, afford to do that professionally, because we want, the best picture that we possibly can present. Because when we get to the end of the line, after those inputs are in there, it's going to spit out, what I want to say. Potential. We're going to be able to see the problems, and then we as professionals, we're going to look and say, okay, we're here, and again we go back to what's in our bag. Well, if you got every tool in your bag, then that's most likely
you're going to be able to have an answer to the solution,
and not solution, huh?
Just one answer, one arrow in your bag.
Yeah. So we're really going to drill down on this. How to tell if your financial advisor is really truly working for you. So we're going to drill down more on this. I know we've just kind of scratched the surface and set the table, for where we're going with this, but stay tuned. You're listening to the Straight Talk Clear Decisions radio show with your no-nonsense hosts, Rick Saylor
and Eric Hamburg.
Money is an awesome thing if you know how to handle it, the joy it brings.
Hey, what about estate planning? An up-to-date will guarantees you're going to go through probate. And without, well, don't worry about it. The government will decide for you. The three enemies to an estate today are number one, the federal inheritance tax, two, probate, and number three, income tax. So your choices here are you can give all your money away. That might not be any fun. You may need it. Or you can create a trust to hold those assets. And remember, you don't have to own the assets to enjoy the benefits. So a revocable living trust can help avoid the expenses and costly delays of probate, and along with a living will, power of attorney, durable health care power of attorney. So be sure and ask about our attorney partners today for a free consultation.
Rick Sailor, smooth financial sailing for the best part of your life.
Well, you're listening to the Straight Talk Clear Decisions radio show with your no-nonsense host, Rick Sailor.
And Eric Hamburg. Sorry about that. We had a little technical difficulties there.
Well, there are black holes that exist in space. They say they're not there. Well, I would contend they are.
We just hit one.
They're still there. They're still there. So we're on this topic of how to tell if your financial advisor is really working for you. Now, this topic and really in the first part of the show, we were talking about, is somebody fee-based? Are they commission-based? Are they solution-focused? And, the best scenario would be have somebody who's solution-focused. They're going to start with a process. They're going to try to help you figure out, where you're going. Because how you going to know if you hit the target if you don't know? Mm-hmm. The second thing is then go back and be able to evaluate and assess what is it that's working and what's not working to tell you what's broken. Then, from a solution-based, be able to offer fee-based or commission-based solutions, whatever's the best for you. Because sometimes it does, in fact, make sense just to pay a commission rather than a ongoing fee. Yeah. Now, if it's fee-based, I would truly be looking for somebody who's the better that you do is the better we're going to do.
Mm-hmm. We're on the same side of the fence.
Yeah. So it's going to put us side by side because the more money you make, the more money we make.
Mm-hmm. And the more money you lose, the more money we lose. We're on the same side. So it's typically better. It's not that it's always better. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't work. It all depends on the situation what you're trying to accomplish.
Well, and one of the most common things sometimes I hear from people that aren't quite aware of how our world works is they'll say, well, how about I just give you my money to manage and you just get a percentage of the upside of what you're giving me. And if I lose money, I don't pay you anything. And that would kind of be like, it reminds me of the story of if you look at any technician or professional, and I would be like, okay, I'm not going to pay you to analyze my problem. I'm just going to, once you figure out what it is, I'm just going to pay you to fix it. Mm-hmm. All right. Now, I don't think I know of any profession that works like that. No. But it does remind me of this story and this is a true story, that there was a nuclear crisis at one of the nuclear plants. And the team that was there was trying to figure out what it was that wasn't working. And they could not figure it out. So they call in this specialist. This guy spends 2 days, and he's going through all this stuff. Finally, he walks over, he flips a switch, and he walks out. And it fixed the problem. So a few days later, the CEO or whoever the billing department gets a bill, and it's like for $100,000. And the CEO said, that's crazy. You're only here for 2 days. So he calls this guy, and the guy says, oh, the analysis time, the 2 days I was there, I didn't charge you for that. Knowing which switch to flip, that was what cost $100,000. So it's always what's at stake and the professionalism of somebody who understands how that works, mm-hmm. Is all the difference in the world. So sometimes and there are people who are do-it-yourselfers. We come across a fair number of those, and hey, God bless you, good luck. I know how hard we work at it and what we look at every day, just to try to get it right. And I know the smartest people in our business get it right half the time. So when I look at that in contrast, it's like any professional. Do you really want to get the cheapest surgeon that's going to do open heart surgery on you?
I don't think so.
No, I don't want the discount guy on that. Are going to do your eye surgery. Maybe it's a little different when you're looking at a mechanic. But I don't know. I don't want that either. I tend to look for the best value. And in my life experience, it's usually not the most expensive and not the least expensive. It's usually that person the value is right in the middle, with a good reputation and good standards of excellence and service and everything else. Because far too often, when you're just treating, say a financial advisor like a commodity, you're going to get what you pay for.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, that's probably not the best selection for those other professions either. And don't buy. What did I see on King of Queens one time when Doug got a coupon for LASIK surgery?
And
for
I didn't
Carrie.
see this one.
Oh, this is an old show, and don't use coupons for LASIK surgery either. I don't think that's a good thing. But I think that's one of the common sense things that maybe is elusive, that a lot of people just kind of don't pay attention, not on their radar.
And if you don't know, are you in a fee-based investment? Are you in a commission-based product? If you don't know, one of the giveaways that we're going to give on our show today is going to be a free second opinion. We'll sit down and we'll show you, what's a commission-based investment that you might have, or if it's all fee-based, so you can understand what you're in, and maybe why you're in, or maybe why you're not somewhere else.
Hey, and your advisor should not be ashamed of telling you what they get paid. We're not. That's what Transparent Wealth Management is about. Mm-hmm. Now, let me add this. That's the fee. That's not the cost. The cost, when I think about people, again, going back to do-it-yourselfers, they are some of the most expensive, the most costliest advisors that I've ever seen. Because knowing what to buy, when to buy it, and when to sell it, you got to have an exit strategy. Mm-hmm. But being able to evaluate that from the get-go to see where there's demand. Somebody just asked me that recently. Well, I don't understand how to determine the trends. Well, why don't you buy some of the subscriptions and pay the tens of thousands of dollars we pay, and then read it every day, and then you'll see that. But then you have to make a judgment. And I know that we don't make the same calls as some of our peers do.
We get access to the same information anybody else can get access to. It's just the route we take
and
once we get that information.
You got to pay for it. And that stuff isn't free. I was asked, I get asked quite a bit, well, what is the value of the stuff I see on CNBC? I said, well, usually by the time you've heard it, it's too late. That's education. It's more entertainment. Mm-hmm. There's some informative stuff, but I know one of the trades that we had picked up last year got rather crowded this year, but it came in way late. By the time, I'm not saying that people didn't make money, they just probably didn't make what we made on it. Mm-hmm. But again, there's no guarantees of that. So again, it's just one of these things, watching that, monitoring it. Well, let's move on to this next point. Peddlers versus planners. How can I tell who I'm dealing with?
I think one of the first telltale signs is which one's actually listening to you. If they're listening to you, they're going to understand, A, what you're working with, and B, what are you trying to accomplish? That's the first. Because if it's a peddler, guess what? They probably only have one or two arrows in their quiver, and they can only sell a few things. So depending on what your situation is, they're going to spin it to make it seem like what they have is the best solution for that. And I'm not saying that it's not the case sometimes. But again,
so here's one that occurred to me while you were just talking. So commonly we hear in our industry, oh, I don't do that. I would never recommend that. Okay, well, that should be a sign right there that they just limited your access to a solution. Because 32 years now and counting, if a tool works right and works well for one person one time, I can't take it out of the bag. Mm-hmm. It's got to be there now. I may not use it very much. Kind of like my golf game. I still carry around a lot of clubs. But if I use that club one time, I'm like, I know I can't get rid of that club.
So that's why you've got 32 clubs in your
bag.
That's it.
That's it. I know what's the limit? 19?
Something like that.
I've been told that several times, but my favorite one is that ball retrieval device I've got. I don't think that counts as a, and of course it's not mine that are going into the water. It's everybody else's.
Everybody else's. You're just.
But I like retrieving those. Those are and hit really good balls too. I like Pro V's. Hit those because I want to fish those out of the water. So that's kind of a good analogy when you think about that. That if it works well one time, and if you don't have it in your bag, then you can't use it. You're going to be stuck trying to use something that is being, morphed or molded or something, being retrofitted to try to make it work. And that works in the financial world too. So, a planner, like you said, is more processed. They're asked a lot of questions at the front side. They're going to try to understand your situation before they ever say, hey, try this.
Yeah, and more than likely, they'll, at the end, when they come back with whatever they're going to, recommend, is they're going to, probably tell you, hey, this is what you're looking for because this is what you've told me. This is what this investment is going to do for you. And here's how we can always monitor it. It's not that you buy it today and put it in cruise control and you let it go forever. We're going to buy it today and continuing monitoring it. That's what a planner is going to do, because there will be a brick wall that it hits at some point. We just don't know when and how big of a brick wall it's going to be. And once that day comes, you've got to be able to maneuver your way around it and maybe make a couple adjustments.
Well, sure. And I look at the, if you haven't started with a roadmap, how do you know, if you don't know the target of where you're going to end, how do you even know you're going to get there? Mm-hmm. Financial independence. Tell me this. I mean, we know this, Eric. How many times have we enjoyed the success of our clients reaching their goals and achieving it? Mm-hmm. I feel like I'm retiring.
Yeah, every time they do.
Every time that happens.
They come in, their eyes are big, they're happy, it seems like they hit the lottery. In reality, they did, because now they get
I just saw somebody, yesterday. She just couldn't stop smiling. And I said, what are you smiling about? And I knew. Mm-hmm. I knew. Her date's June 30th.
Yeah.
And she just kept smiling. And all the time I've known her and her husband, I've never seen her smile that much. It's one of those things. And I said, it's got to be comforting to know that you, within the financial, not a guarantee, but we've looked at everything scientific. You think about what goes into our financial plans. We've put in, their budget, their inflows, their outflows. We've put in their portfolio they currently have. So we've assessed their risk both and reward. I was back on that cost thing. It's not what the fee is. It's what do you get paid when the market goes up and what do you get paid when it goes down? But then you're looking at vision, values, and goals, because everybody is unique. I want to travel. No, I don't want to travel. I want to do this. I want to give to the grandkids. I want to do this. All those goals are different. So when you put those vision, values, and goals in there, then it should be tested against the metrics, the stress testing we call it, against inflation, against taxes, and against volatility. And our program tests, 10,000 combinations over the last 30 years. And it's going to spit out a real simple reading that says 99, you're successful, you're not going to outlive your money. 75, you're still in the zone. 74, you're failing, and it completely fails at 40. So then you either got to work longer, you got to save more, you got to take more investment risk, you got to cut your standard of living, or you got to cut the legacy to the kiddies. Mm-hmm. One of those got to give. There's only 5 pieces in the game.
And if you start that planning process earlier, maybe you never have to sacrifice any of them. But if you haven't started planning but a couple years before you retire, well, now you only have a few options. And if you really want to retire, one of those more than likely will probably be sacrificed.
One of my favorite questions, Eric, is, when we look at this, really what we do and everything we do, and I've talked about this so often, ideal lives realized. And what's yours look like? Mm-hmm. What's your ideal life look like? That's what we help people achieve.
And if you don't know,
and then monitor it on an ongoing basis.
And a lot of people don't understand. They just think retirement's retirement. Well, you got to have some. You got to have some goals. Get something out of the retirement. And if you don't know what it is, how do you know what you got to do today to get there?
So, we're gonna finish the show here in the next segment here. We're going to open it up to questions. Again, call us live at 866-472-5790. Or if you're a little shy or you want to compose your thoughts, send it to us, info@straighttalkcleardecisions.com, and we'll answer that question on the air today on the show. Now, in the next part of the show, we're going to talk about what does an investment policy statement look like? And first of all, what the heck is that?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
A long couple
and
words.
Then secondly, this Department of Labor, decree from on high, and kind of the pluses and minuses in that, where you can look for it to maybe help protect you, and where you might as well just forget it because there's something else better and you need to know, what to be looking at. So you're listening to the Straight Talk Clear Decisions radio show with your Straight Talk Money host, Rick Saylor.
And Eric Hamburg.
Money is an awesome thing if you know how to handle it, the joy it brings.
Hey, have you heard about the new long-term care alternatives? Many of you may know how I managed my mother's care, and I took her through her money in the spend down into the veterans benefits. My father was a 2-time Korean War vet, and right into the Medicaid. She started out at $2,700 a month in assisted living, and at the end of her life, 2 years later, was over $8,000. The three concerns I hear the most about long-term care insurance protection is that it's expensive, the premiums are rising, and I may never use it. Well, why don't you try what I did? I bought a life insurance long-term care. They can't cancel me, the premiums can never go up, and oh yeah, I can spend that death benefit before I die if I'm critically, chronically, or terminally ill. Be sure and ask your advisor today.
Rick Saylor, smooth financial sailing for the best part of your life.
Well, you're listening to the Straight Talk Clear Decisions radio show with your no-nonsense host, Rick Saylor.
And Eric Hamburg.
Well, Eric, we've been on this topic here. Let's finish this up on how to tell if your financial advisor is really working for you and how you determine if they really have your best interest at heart. Well, the first couple things we've covered, they fee, commission, or solution-based.
Yep. Or
Should be solution-based. They should be process versus product.
Yep. Are they a peddler or are they a planner?
Yeah, and one of the ways to determine that is the first thing they come in, do they spend a lot of time listening to you, or do they start out by saying, hey, here's what you need? Because the saying goes, to a man with a hammer, the whole world looks like a nail. Don't get nailed.
Easy as that, right?
That's what the peddlers look like. And it's that they eat what they kill. So they're doing a lot of killing. Mm-hmm. So stay away from that. So let's jump into this one. What is an investment policy statement, and what does that investment policy state?
And everybody who is a fiduciary will have or should have an IPS or an investment policy statement. So what that statement provides, it's the general investment goals and objectives of that firm's or that individual's investment strategy and how they use to monitor it. So, for example, they'll talk about asset allocation, risk tolerance, liquidity needs. Could all be in an IPS because you want to understand what their process is. And it says risk allocation, but I personally would want to really dig down, and we do when we go after different investments or different managers. We want to understand what's their process for their risk allocation and why are they going and moving them in certain situations.
How are they selecting their assets?
Correct.
Their stocks, their bonds. How are they choosing those? So yeah, we're a lot deeper than the typical person. But one of the things that's been in conflict, Eric, and a lot of people weren't aware of this, is that and that's why this Department of Labor, which we'll talk about in just a few minutes, why that decree has come down and the limitations to that. But the biggest issue has been that the industry has been two-pronged. We have one group that has an investment policy statement like us, where that we cannot not act in your best interest. We cannot recommend something that's not going to be the best solution for you as we see that. Now, how does that contrast? Well, there's another rule called the suitability rule. And the suitability rule just says, is this suitable for this investor to buy? So, for example, when the housing bubble was raging in the early 2000s, Goldman Sachs was selling both long and short positions and recommending them. Now, that's not to say somebody couldn't come in, and we've had people come in and say, hey, even though, we disagree, will you execute this position? And we will execute that unsolicited and say, hey, you know what, that's not what we see, but if that's what you want. But what Goldman Sachs was doing was, somebody come in and go, hey, this is just taking off, it's roaring, and okay, that's what you want to buy, so here, yeah, we agree with you. So then the other people come in and go, hey, we think this is a bubble. This thing looks like it's going to crash. We agree with you. So right there, that should smack of salesmen, somebody trying to sell something, and they're just appeasing whoever's sitting there. Now, that's a stark contrast. And I've had some clients, they heard the when this all hit the airwaves, about 6 weeks ago. I think Barack Obama stepped out, the president started addressing this, which is, unfortunately, it's been one of these things where some people, get involved in things they don't really understand. I understand the intent. The intent may have been good as we talk about this Department of Labor, the Dodd-Frank rules and everything, but the reality is it was a Pandora's box, And so we did have some people contact us and say, hey, well, I just want to make sure that you're acting in my best interest. We said, yeah, we've been doing that for 7 years. So all this stuff that's coming down, we're going to talk about in the Department of Labor ruling, most of the stuff we're already ahead of that curve. Mm-hmm. We've already been providing that. So let's talk a little bit about that. So I think we understand now what is an investment policy statement, suitability versus best interest, only being able to act in the best interest. Now let's talk about, and one or two schools of thought come down on this one. If you're a person that believes that regulatory actions will save you, then you're probably going to be pretty happy, maybe.
Big word there.
With the DOL, because we're going to read right out of an article that we saw come out, the DOL, the Department of Labor issues, the proposed fiduciary rule for the 2015 version. Now, this has been revised a couple times. So actually, let's just kind of jump into this. Now, if you're on the other school of thought and say, if you just do surgical amendments, the free market, can vet that out. So for example, if again, you want to really know somebody's acting in your best interest, won't you walk in and say, well, what do you have to offer? And they say, well, hey, we can offer you anything. Either we do this or our partners do it, but we're here to fix it. We'll help you find out what it is, and then we want to get paid to fix it. Mm-hmm. That's probably your best scenario. And there's no legislation going to legislate that out. That's just one of those things that just sets the stage and the environment for a less biased position. Mm-hmm. So here's the thing that's come down. They've revamped this thing, April 14th of this year, in the latest attempt to protect the investors from the conflicted investment advice. That's really what they're after, and we're all about that. And at some point we're hoping they'll finally get a final rule, because all this stuff that was just kind of dropped in that DOL version, the Dodd-Frank thing is just implementation of this has been a nightmare.
Yep.
So, they have estimated, I'm not going to speak for this or against
this. This is the White House Council of Economic Advisors. This is their numbers. They've estimated in these conflicts of interest, which we're talking about instituting, over a $17 billion a year loss in total. So from
annual losses, right? At about 1%.
Annual. So these are the conflicts of interest that this rule is trying to start to impose, because in the past they've been losing over $17 billion a year from these conflicts.
So, the goal is the same, is requiring retirement investment advice to be in the client's best interest. But the methodology in this rule is different. This time, the proposed rule would require a best interest standard, and it would go across a broad range of retirement advice, basically expanding the types of retirement advice covered by fiduciary protections. Now, what we're talking about is, when you're a fiduciary, again, you have to act in the best interest, not just suitability. Mm-hmm. So, and who would this affect? Any advisor, forget the initials behind their name, any advisor being paid to provide individual advice, what assets to purchase or sell, which means they've got discretion, or whether to roll over a 401k balance into an IRA, individual retirement account, for example. That would now be defined as a fiduciary and would have to put their client's interest first.
And doesn't just affect, a securities advisor like we are. It'll also affect somebody who only has an insurance license. And we've got an insurance license also, because now you're dealing with 401k, their retirement plan money. Even if it goes into an insurance plan, they are now going to be fiduciarily responsible.
So there are certain withdrawal privileges. There are certain things called net unrealized appreciation. These are technical. If you want to Google those and look at those, you get a little understanding. But once you walk out of a 401k, you can never get those back. Mm-hmm. And not informing somebody of those strategies, of those options, would be derelict. And they're going to be held accountable for that, because maybe they just want to get it out. Now, we look at that. We explore all that when we're looking at it. We have yet to see a 401k that can compete with our platforms. I mean, that's rare because we do advise if somebody just leaves their money in their 401k or they roll it out. But there's some advantages. We have 50,000 choices out here versus however many they've got, which seldom
the
match
plan.
that.
Yep.
We have alternatives. We can do that out here. We can't do it inside your 401k. And estate planning. You can do stretch IRA legacy planning, multi-generational planning, much more efficiently with individual IRA than you can.
Instead of a
It's
retirement
almost
plan.
impossible with a 401k.
Yep.
So the second thing we look at here, and by the way, there are, except we stated that first thing, it has to be impartial advice in their best interest, and it can't accept any payments creating conflicts of interest unless they qualify for an exemption. And according to this author, there appear to be a lot of exemptions.
Go figure.
All right, so you have something called the new best interest contract exemption, which still permits commissions and revenue sharing as long as they are disclosed. So good luck, and whether consumers actually read those things, I mean, good luck.
They'll have it hidden in the back page over a
So if you're
90-page
not, we
document.
get that a lot, don't we? We get that a lot where people say, I still don't know how much I get paid. Well, if you, again, that's our offer today. Call us at 513-454-9999, request a private one-on-one, and that's a free consultation. We'll tell you exactly what they get paid. There's 100 pennies in a dollar. Last time I checked.
Me too.
They shouldn't be ashamed of telling you what the fees are and what the costs are. And what do you get paid, and what are you paying, and what do you get paid, and what are you likely to get paid. So this next one is a principles-based exemption. Now this is a new one within that same category, which is a concern. Well, the last one is a low-fee exemption, which would they can allow the firms to accept payment that would otherwise be deemed conflicted when recommended the lowest fee products in a given class of products.
So if they just recommend the lowest fee product, then this rule doesn't apply to them. So again, it comes back to conflicts of interest. Is this thing really going to...
Is it really going to fix that?
Correct.
Well, you know what? Rely on the tools we gave you in the beginning. And again, come to us or somebody like us, ask them. They'll drill down through it. They'll tell you exactly what it is. Now, a couple things we should mention, because we're big on education. This is carved out and preserved as retirement education without triggering that. So you may be getting it from your 401k or IRA, and they're just giving you education, employer-sponsored retirement plans, that will be exempted. But there is if you've got time, you want to go read that Department of Labor ruling. Plus, it's published a 250-page regulatory impact analysis of the proposed rule, facts and fact sheet, FAQs. So if you just got some free time on your hands and got nothing else better to do,
Have at it.
have at it.
So I think the short of the story is, wrapping up here, make sure if you're working with an investment advisor or a planner, whoever it might be, make sure they've got a process and make sure that they have your end game in mind. What is your strategy? What's your plan moving forward, and how are you going to monitor it, and how are you going to switch things and change things if you need to?
All right, and if you, you can go on and look at, there's something called Broker Check. There's a state of insurance department regulatory things. You can find out if they have been, had filings against them and how they were resolved. I mean, 32 years, I know we've got a handful, but, we've done our very best, to do that. But you just want to look at the nature of those, and then were there rulings against them, were there fines, what happened in that process. So there's a lot of things. And if you want that information, again, we can provide that to you. Just contact us. We'll give it to you absolutely free. So we do appreciate you joining us on the show. It's been another good show. How to tell if your financial advisor is really working for you. Feel free to call us at 513-454-9999, and they'll answer that 24/7. Tell them you heard us on the show and what you want, and Bill, our appointment setter, can set that up. Well, thanks for joining us. You've been on our Straight Talk Clear Decisions radio show, and with the no-nonsense host, Rick Saylor
And Eric Hamburg.